Well, it's a very good morning from him, and of course it's a very good morning from me. I hope everybody's well. Welcome to my mortgage live stream. Welcome to, we weren't here last week because it was May Day, wasn't it? Because, of course, this time of year we have loads of bank holidays. So welcome to our first one for a couple of weeks. And I've got an interesting session for you on a case study from CeMAP 3, which I think you'll like as well. And a little tip for you about referrals and how you can gain referrals from your clients. Because at the end of the day, that's what mortgage and financial advisors do. We get referrals. That's how we grow our business. Hope you're well. Hope you're good. Mortgage markets, financial services market is beginning to see some really good things happening, actually. You probably read about interest rates, of course, coming down. The Bank of England base rate came down, yes, but it's the swap markets and it's the gilt yields that determine the fixed rates that we're getting as well. So they're coming down with the prospects a little bit more this year as well. There's some trade deals going on now, which is giving people confidence. And, we could be looking at quite a buoyant market towards the end of the year. We'll wait and see. Because we're into May, June now, aren't we? Things tend to slow down then. So I hope all is good with you and you're busy and you're getting lots of clients and you're selling protection to every single client. Well, you should do really at the end of the day. But if you're looking to expand or recruit, you're taking on some more people for your firm, of course, the exams need to be done. And we've got our CeMAP bootcamp, which we've been running now for almost 10 years, I think it is. Obviously, we've updated it in amongst those years, but we're very proud of what we offer here. If you're wanting to talk about that, then let me know and I can help you with that. If you're expanding your team, there you go. Enough of that. Let's get into our first session, which is a case study on CeMAP 3, which we've got in our CeMAP 3 revision guide. And what we do on the bootcamp is we have videos which explain the answers, because people like to get the answers right. Of course they do, but they also like to see that they've got them right and how, why, and particularly with CeMAP 3, because it's all about getting into the examiner's head and all those good things. So let's pop over to the whiteboard and we'll get on with our first case study then, shall we? So let's pop across here. Here's my whiteboard. I'm going to make a note here. This is Chris and Sarah, by the way. I'm going to make a note on this whiteboard as I go through the case study with you in a second. I'm going to make a note on the whiteboard, my visuals, if you like, to remind me. I always recommend that you do this. Either on a piece of card or on a sheet on the computer, is make notes as to what you see and hear. So let's go over to the case study and see what Chris and Sarah brings to us, shall we? See what we've got on Chris and Sarah for us. Chris and Sarah case study then. Well, first of all, let's give you the first 3 paragraphs. First one here then. Chris and Sarah. Chris is age 31 and Sarah is age 30. They're planning to buy their first home together. Okay. Chris owns a house in which they live at the moment. Okay. Bit of a clever one, that. Their first home together. You'd think, well, first time buyers, but they're not, because old Chris owns a house in which they live at the moment. So he's obviously bought that or inherited it. Doesn't make a difference. They're not first time buyers. The house is on the market for 190,000 and they want to sell it to raise the deposit for the new property. So standard stuff, really. Let's just quickly whiz over to our board here, where we can start drawing a few pictures and things. So they've got this property which they're selling. So there's the property which is up for sale. Typical sort of situation, isn't it? And this one's on the market. We don't know if it's going to sell for that figure as well. This one's on the market, as we've seen there, for 190,000. 190. Okay. Now we've got two guys here. We've got Chris. There you go. Let's just put Chris in there for you. And Sarah. My little pictures there for you. Chris and Sarah. Now, they're not first-time buyers. We know that. So first-time buyers, they are not. I bet you there's a catch in the questions on that one. There's bound to be, isn't there? Because Chris already owns that property. Okay, that's what we know so far. Let's go back to the case study then. Next paragraph. Chris has an interest-only mortgage of £145,000 supported by a low-cost endowment policy, with a death benefit value and estimated maturity value of the same figure maturing in 18 years' time. Okay, so what we've got here? Well, it's in his own name only, interest-only mortgage of 145, so that's never gone down. And he's got a low-cost endowment policy where the death benefit's obviously 145, and the estimated maturity value is the same, maturing in 18 years. So we've got some options about that endowment. It's not been going on too long. And as you can see, of course, these things are never sold now. We know that. But of course, in the exam, they do, don't they? So he's got himself a endowment policy or an existing mortgage of 145. So let's put that in here, shall we? because we probably need to know that. So he's got a mortgage of 145k. It's what we call an endowment mortgage, or in other words, it's an interest only, supported by an endowment. Now the endowment is doing okay. It's on target and it's got 18 years remaining on it. What happened there, of course, with the endowment is that that'll mature in 18 years' time and pay out £145,000 to pay off his interest-only mortgage. So they haven't got a lot of equity, really, have they, between the two of them here? They've got, what, 45,000 equity. So let's just put a little package in here now. We've got 45 grand of equity from the sale of the property. That's consuming, of course. It sells at 190. 145 that's the money they got to play with. So let's get on to the next part of the question. What I'm doing, as you can see, is I'm building the questions as I go along, and I'm making my notes of what's happening. They've seen a semi, in which Chris is positive, very good man, that an offer of 250 plus 2.5 grand for fixtures and fittings would be accepted. Okay, so that's fair enough, isn't it? So again, quickly whiz across here. Final pictures or two. They've got this semi, which they found. Let's put a little semi detached there. Where, obviously, it's a semi. There you go. That's half of a semi, isn't it? And that one's on the market for 250. There you go. 250k plus 2,500 for fixtures and fittings. Now, fixtures and fittings are things typically that go with the house that would normally be taken away, and furniture and stuff like that, probably. And what he's done, he's tried to avoid stamp duty, dropping up to the next slab of stamp duty. That's an old technique that he used to use. Not really that important these days. But that's the figures for the house itself. Okay, makes sense. Not much more to say on that one. So next paragraph. They anticipate that their moving expenses, including estate agency and legal fees, will be in the region of £10,000. They have no savings built up to pay for these. Okay, he's been paying a big mortgage. So he needs 10 grand to pay for removals. So let's make a note of that one then. So this 45 grand, 10 grand of that's got to be paid for costs. So really, when it comes to the deposit to put down on this new house, they ain't got 45. He's only got £35,000 to go onto the new house. So we can now see the size of mortgage that he's going to be going for. I bet you there's a question on that one as well, isn't it? Okay, back to the case study. What else have we got? Okay. Now, Chris's salary is £62,000 per annum. With guaranteed overtime of 70. So Chris is on 62 grand, which is a nice salary. He's also got guaranteed overtime. Now, when it comes to lending, what lenders tend to do if it's guaranteed is they'll take all of it into account, but it has to be confirmed. So we could probably add that 7,000 to his salary for purposes of affordability. Sarah is on 60. These two are on good money, aren't they? 60,000. And that's it, per annum. We've confirmed a variable overtime of 3,000. Now, where it's variable, they may take half of that. So we could put £1,500 onto that, and that's the overtime because it's variable. But again, that's the theory. In practice, they might take it all. Fair enough. Chris took out a loan for Sarah's car, which costs £280 per month and has 21 months left to run. Now, that, of course, is mandatory expenditure, a car loan. 21 months is what, just under 2 years. So the lender's going to take that into account, and they're going to work out what it costs each year and deduct that from his income for affordability purposes. So that needs to be taken off then. I'll show you the figures I'm doing up on the board for you so you can see what I'm doing. What I'm going to do now is minus 3,360 because that's the car loan. There you go. Let's squeeze that in there for you. Running out of room here, aren't we? So if we need to do a calculation for affordability, which we may have to do, we've got 62 plus the 7 his overtime, less that's a mandatory expenditure. Obviously, he's going to pay this mortgage off when he buys this new house. So that's saving us hopefully a little bit of time when it comes to it. So let's back to the numbers then, shall we? What have we got? So they have a number of objectives for their new mortgage. So this is obviously the identified needs. CeMAP 3 is all about the right mortgage and the right protection. They do want to be able to enjoy a fixed budget, so that's telling me a fixed rate mortgage, but also keep their total monthly cost to a minimum for the first few years. They want to keep the costs down. They want to keep their monthly costs down to the minimum for for the first few years. I don't know why. They've got good income, these two. It's not a massive mortgage they're looking for either. Anyway, Sarah and Chris are still happy to use the endowment, but are more cautious in their approach to additional borrowing. They're keen to ensure that any new mortgage balance is protected in the event of death or serious illness. A couple of things going on there, aren't there? So death, of course, is life assurance, level term assurance or mortgage protection. But serious illness, that talks about critical illness, not income protection, but critical illness. That's how they tend to define the differences there. They want to be protected. They're quite cautious in their approach to additional borrowing. So we're probably looking at some type of capital interest mortgage, aren't we? Or maybe a part and part interest only with the endowment, part capital interest on the other half as well. So that's given me the information that I need. The next thing for us to do then is to get into the questions. Before we go there, let's have a quick look at what I've done on the board for you so you can see where we are. Now, remember, I always talk about doing this. It gets you into the mind of the case study, gets you to focus and concentrate. And I've probably already answered quite a few of the questions, because that tends to be the way it works. Sort of questions I think we're going to get, but we're definitely going to get, what's the maximum mortgage these two can have? And if you work it out now, you've got 250 plus 2,500, less 35,000 deposit. So let's just take a look at what kind of mortgage they're going to be looking for there. Let's just put that in there. That's the deposit. So for them to buy at 250 plus the 2.5 fixtures and fittings, less the 35, they're looking at a mortgage. Let's just get this right. So £250,000 plus 2,500 minus 35,000 is deposit, gives me 217,500 is the new mortgage that they're going to get. I've already worked that out. I don't know what the questions are yet, but this keep my mind going, you see. Now that happens to be 250, a 87% loan to value. 87% loan to value, LTV. So it's quite high, but it's okay. It's easily done because they've got no other money, you see, these two, and he's had an interest-only mortgage. He's not been able to whittle that away. Obviously, that's the numbers. On their incomes, they're easily going to be able to afford a mortgage of that, aren't they? You don't even have to work that out. So I don't suppose there's going to be any questions on that one. I bet you that first-time buyer is going to crop up with a question as well. Anyway, let's get into the questions, Jerry. I bet you can't wait, can you? You're so excited, as they say. Right, question number one for you. Here we go. Calculate the amount that Chris and Sarah need to borrow, assuming that they sell Chris's house for the planned figure and their offer on the new semi is accepted. Well, as you can probably see, we've already done this, haven't we? Let's just pop across here. 217,500. So, I can really do this one quickly. And of course, the correct answer there is D, 217,500, as you can see. That was easy, wasn't it? Okay. Again, we did the work, didn't we? All right, let's just pop in so you can see me as well. Okay, next question then. Let's pop down there out of the way. Using the list of mortgage products, what would be the most suitable mortgage product? Now, it's very unlikely in the CeMAP exam will you get a list of mortgage products, but in the test questions, we tend to do that because it's easy to see, isn't it? Sometimes they might give you some options of mortgage products, a list maybe, but very rarely, normally it's built into the question. But as you can see here, we've got 4 different types of mortgage. We've got fixed rate, we've got capped rate, fixed, capped and fixed. So they're all meeting the needs. And these guys need a budget. Remember, the identified need was they wanted to be able to budget. What was the words? They do want to be able to enjoy a fixed budget, but also keep their payments low for the first few years. So all 4 of these will be a fixed budget. For the next couple of years, 2 years, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So they're all pretty much going to work, aren't they? Obviously, 299 is better, so maybe a lower figure might be a good one. But let's have a look at the sheet then and see what we've got. And I'll get out of the way so you can see that. Now, if you take a look at the sheet that came with this exam, you've got a number of different types of mortgages here. Now, if you can remember the options there we had the fixed rate for 2 years. There we are, fixed rate for 2 years, 399. And that was a good option, isn't it? Fixed rate for 2 years at 299, that was better. But the problem here is the maximum loan to value. The maximum loan to value is 60%, 60. And they're on 87. So you can't have that one. That's the point. They can have that one fixed for 2 years, 399, 90%. That's definitely an option. Now the 5-year fix they can also have as well, as you can see. Obviously a completion fee to pay, and there's early redemption penalties and things. And that's 90%, that's okay. But because they want to keep their costs lower in the first few years, they want to keep it to the minimum, I would go for the 2-year lower rate. But the best one we have is 399. So if we go back to the question, so we can see where we are on that one. Let's go back to the question. There we go, flick back. The answer to this one is B, a fixed rate of 399 for 2 years, because that's the only one that you could have at a low 2-year fix. So that's a nice question, isn't it? Okay, let's flick on then. Let's get through those sheets there. Number 3. If Chris and Sarah proceed with their intended mortgage repayment method, what protection policy would be most suitable? So their intended mortgage repayment method, remember, was a cautious one approach to the additional borrowing. They are keen to ensure that any new mortgage balance is protected in the event of death or illness. So all we've got really is they're looking for a cautious approach, which of course is capital and interest. So if we go for capital and interest, then C, of course, mortgage protection with critical illness is what they want. Obviously, mortgage protection is the life. Critical illness, their cover is the serious illness cover as well. We've already got life assurance for the other part of the mortgage, haven't we? Think about it. If we go back to the sheet over here, the board here, they're looking for a mortgage of 217. He's already got an interest-only mortgage of 145, but that's covered by his existing endowment. It's only in his name, so I'd be a bit worried about that one. But that therefore leaves about 70, 80 grand of their new mortgage on repayment. And a repayment mortgage, of course, needs mortgage protection because it all goes down in line with the mortgage protection itself. So the joint mortgage protection policy with critical illness would certainly cover the extra. He's got life cover for this as well. She hasn't, so I'd probably do a level term for her in her name for 145 to make sure she's protected. And maybe a critical illness policy for the two of them, a joint policy, maybe for 145 as well. But the question doesn't give us those options, is it? They've not gone that complicated. They've only given you level term or mortgage protection. But it is for the additional amount of the mortgage, so therefore C would be the right answer for that one, C, number 3. But it would be a combination of all, wouldn't it, at the end of the day? Okay, number 4. What is the most suitable repayment method for Chris and Sarah? Here we go. We just kind of talked about that, didn't we? It's amazing how many times you get to talk about these things, and it allows you to flick on to the next question. So the most suitable repayment method, as we said, I'll just flick it back over here, is interest-only mortgage for this part and a capital and interest mortgage for the difference. So we've got 2 types, most on interest-only, a fair bit on capital and interest, supported by various methods, the low-cost endowment and mortgage protection. But the 2 types of mortgage then are a part and part. I think they've given us the option here, haven't they? Let's have a look what they've given us. There we are, look, C, part endowment, part capital and interest. There we are. The answer is C. That was pretty easy, wasn't it? Good, okay. Last question, number 5. It's only a 5-question one, this case study. If Chris and Sarah proceed with their intended house purchase, how much stamp duty land tax will they pay? Now, a lot of people would have read the case study thinking Chris and Sarah are first-time buyers. Of course, first-time buyers don't have to pay stamp duty up to $300,000, don't they? And the purchase price on this property, just to remind you, is $250,000. So if you went for the first-time buyer, then they don't have to pay any. But they're not first-time buyers. That's the point. So we need to go to the figures for normal people. That's the right phrase to use. Stamp duty rates April 25, as you can see here. Nothing up to 125. Then you've got the little 2% there, 125 to 250. So that's what they have to pay. So if I just get my calculator out. So it's 125,000 is the chunk. At 2% is 2,500. Now, because they're buying the fixtures and fittings with cash or with the deposit that they've got, that doesn't form part of the purchase price. As long as the purchase price is 250, otherwise you could be accused of falsifying the numbers for HMRC, and they don't take kindly to that. So it would be that figure. So if we go back to the question, here we are. B, there's the answer. 2,500, 5B. But a lot of people go for A, thinking they're first-time buyers, but they're not at the end of the day. So there we have A case study for you are Chris and Sarah. As you can see, as always, I've done all the hard work with this. This gets me into the mode of a case study, gets me into the characters and what's going on. And going through the questions itself is actually quite quick and simple, which is why you should always spend time analysing the case study. So I hope that's been useful. Bye. Well done, well done, well done. As I mentioned to you before, we've got loads of these case studies in our CeMAP 3 bootcamp. We've got them in the revision guide with just the answers. But if you want those videos which explain how they all work, then the bootcamp's got all of that for you, which is fabulous. CeMAP 3 is a tricky little number, or CF6 if you're doing the other version. It's a tricky little number, and understanding how to approach the case studies is absolutely the most important thing. Okay, let's go on to our last part then on our live stream this week. Let's go on to my usual sort of sales idea for you, just to get you thinking about running a business and building your business. And this one's about referrals. Why referrals matter more than you think. Now, our home was built in 1841 and the roof needed a good overhaul this year. Now, water was leaking, unfortunately, into our bedroom near the chimney stack next door. Now, due to the low slope of our building, the low apex, and the width of the terrace street, it's impossible to see the roof from the road. So I'm in a quandary about how to fix the problem. Now, a roofer, of course, seemed the solution, but who to choose was the question. Eventually, we chose a local firm that was highly recommended and referred to by a number of our good friends. Now, this referral became even more important when I realised that I'd never see the work that they would be carrying out. Not in a million years am I going onto a roof. So trust was imperative. Now, in our world of financial advising, trust is paramount, and it can take a few meetings before our clients begin to trust us fully, because that's human nature. But because one of our best friends, in fact, a number of our best friends, highly regarded this roofing firm, their trust was passed on to me. Now, the rest is history, of course, so to speak. During Storm Dara in December last year, the new roof held firm with no water ingress, thank goodness. The message, of course, is not just to welcome referrals from your clients, but to create a proactive system to seek out referrals from every single client that you act on behalf of. It's, I think, a long-lost skill from many advisors, particularly amongst the newest intakes, as it's often perceived as too salesy to ask. My message, though, is don't be reluctant to ask. There you go. Hope you enjoyed that. A fine little sales idea for you, just to keep you up to speed with how things move, because clients are the most important things. Unless you work for an employer, a bank or building society, and you've got like loads of people coming to talk to you every day, and that don't happen anymore though, because the world has moved on from branches and clients loyal to banks and building societies. Most people now are in smaller brokerages where you have to fight hard and work hard to get clients and new business, of course. And I always recommend that you spend a good day a week on marketing, personal marketing activities. But if you can get referrals working for you, for every client you meet, get a referral, then you'll probably never need to market ever again. You work off your reputation. And that building firm I told you about, they work off their reputation. They've been around long enough. Anyway, as always, let's finish off, shall we, and give you our little database sign up that you can sign up for. There you go. As always, there's our little hub there where you can go onto. There's the QR code that'll get you in. We've got, as I've mentioned many times before, we've got lots of things happening all the time, and we keep you posted with information and stuff like that. But also we keep you posted. Let's pop over here, you can see that QR code, with articles. Each Monday we send you a mortgage article, something technical maybe, and on Sunday night, if you want, you get a small of a salesy article, which I personally write and publish. We've also got a CPD program on our learning system, which is free. So get onto our mailing list and we'll just keep you informed of everything that we do. And that way you can be abreast of all the issues that's going on. So I think it's time to say goodbye. I hope you have a fantastic week, everybody. Enjoy yourselves and enjoy the sunshine, because the sun's shining at the moment, isn't it? Which is rather lovely. And we'll see you all next week. Bye.